Okay, this is not going to be the most fabulous video, but to make pie crust, you put your butter in the microwave. I'm going to do 20 seconds on power 5. You want it still hard, but not as cold as the fridge. So we're just going to microwave that. Okay, now I like to put it in a bowl and just chop it up into kind of bigger chunks before I start blending it with the pastry blender. And for each stick of butter, you do a cup of flour. And for a double crust, I'm going to do 2 sticks and 2 cups of flour. Now I'm just going to take the pastry blender and blend this up till it's crumbly. And I need 2 hands to do that, so I'm going to stop videotaping right now and I'll show you more in a minute. Okay, now it's all crumbly, so I've just, squished it around with the pastry blender until it's gotten to be all crumbly. And then you just add the water. So to 2 sticks of butter and 2 cups of flour, you add a 1/4 cup cold water. You can do milk or water. I can't tell a difference. I've tried it both ways. I thought milk would make it taste even better, but it tastes the same to me. So you might as well use water. Then you just kind of stir it around and it'll start to come together from the water. This is where if you have too warm of butter or too cold of butter, it doesn't quite work as well. If it's too cold, it won't really come together. And then after you start to get it to come together, you just use your hand and just kind of toss it around, and it'll come together more. If it's too cold, it doesn't come together. It just stays all crumbly. If it's too warm, it will really start to melt to your hands. That's the tricky thing about using butter instead of Crisco. A lot of people use shortening. But it tastes so much better with butter. So I would highly recommend butter. But anyway, you just keep doing this for a while and eventually it will come together in a ball. And I'm going to videotape this because this is the part that takes the longest. And I just want to show you how short it really is. The other parts I didn't keep videotaping because I really needed 2 hands to do it. But this I can do with 1 hand. So you don't want to have your butter too cold or too warm, but I find that if you do that 20 seconds in the microwave on power 5, it's pretty much perfect. It's really starting to come together now. When you're using butter instead of Crisco or shortening, it melts a lot more, so you can make this beautiful, beautiful crust and have it all styled perfectly, and when it comes out of the oven, it'll look all nice and golden brown and be pretty that way, but it will have kind of melted and it just doesn't hold up as well as Crisco. So if you want a pie that looks perfect, use Crisco. If you want a pie that tastes perfect, use butter. I guess you could do the butter flavored Crisco, and that would probably be a good mix of both, but I prefer real butter, so I just don't worry about it not being as pretty. Okay, now you can see it's really coming into a nice ball. And this is going to make a double crust, and actually a lot of times I can get a double crust and another single. So you could do an apple or a fruit pie with a double crust, and then a pumpkin pie also with your one recipe. Okay, I'm going to have to stop it and form it into a perfect ball now. Probably really should have used the GoPro on my head, but now I would normally do this with 2 hands. you're just gonna use 2 hands, form it into a nice ball, and then keep doing this and form it into more of a disc. I'm gonna do that and then I'll cut it. I prefer to do pies on a pastry cloth. I always had them sticking when I tried to do pies just on the counter on a floured surface. So I use a pastry cloth, and you can buy them on Amazon, I think. You can buy them lots of places, but Amazon's an easy one. Just get flour over the cloth and over the cloth covered rolling pin, and then you just take your little disc that you've formed. I wish I could videotape this. Maybe if I tuck the camera on my neck. If it doesn't work, I guess I'll throw it away, but I'm gonna hold the camera with my neck and see if you can watch me roll it out. So, okay, maybe not. But anyway, I'm just gonna roll it and then I'll show you when it's done. Okay, so there is my pie dough all rolled out. Now I'm gonna just take my rolling pin, place it on the pie dough, and roll it up a little bit. Just like that. Now you can place your pan there. And I'm gonna try and record with my neck again. And roll it out onto your pan. Whoops. So there, it's covering the pan. Then you just carefully get it into the pan and trim around the extra. And that's what it looks like once it's trimmed. You leave a little, like to leave a little extra poking out from the tin. Okay, so it's not perfectly even, but that's okay. You can see where the tin ends and where the extra's poking out. Because once you put your fruit in and then the top on, you're gonna fold it all under and make the crust. So, go on. Okay, so I'm doing an apple pie today. These apples have been sitting, let's see, I did, what are they called? Honey Crisp apples, which are a pretty sweet, crispy apple. So they do not need a ton of sugar. So I did probably, for 3 Honey Crisp apples, which are huge apples, I do about 2 or 3 in the pie, depending on how big they are. But for that many, I did about a ½ cup of sugar and a teaspoon of cinnamon. If your cinnamon is a little older, you might want to do a little more if it's not as flavorful. These, you can see I've already gotten pretty juicy, so I've added quite a bit of flour so that the juice sets up a little once it cooks. And I'm just going to fill up this pie shell, and then I'm going to roll out the top crust. Sorry, I'm trying to do this with one hand and record with the other hand. And it is kind of difficult. I'm going to squeeze all of these. This apple pie is going to have extra apples because I don't have enough to make one more. I don't even have enough to make a small one. So I'm going to just fill this one over full. But there's no such thing as overfull when it comes to an apple pie, I think. And then I'm going to dump all the juice in. I have one apple that doesn't want to get in the spoon. Okay, so there's my overfull pie. And there's lots of juice left in here from them sitting. So I'm going to just pour that over the top. Okay, now you want to dot the pie with butter. Okay, now I've rolled out the upper crust and placed it over the pie, and now I'm going to trim it and pull it under. Okay, now what you're going to do is you're going to take the top and the bottom crust, fold them together and tuck them under like that. And that seals your pie in. So I'm wrapping the top crust over the bottom crust. See, there's the bottom, there's the top. Wrap it over, tuck them under. Now, it's a lot easier with two hands. So now your pie looks like this. And you just take your hands and do that all the way around, and you've got a, oh, I don't even know if I was videotaping it. Just like that. So now your pie looks like that. Now what I'm going to do is just take these cute little decorations I cut out, leaves and stars, and just place them on my pie to decorate it. And if you wet them on one side with water, they'll stick. Okay, so that's how I've decorated my pie. I've done the leaves, and then I vented it on one side with a nice little sprig of wheat. My grandma always does a sprig of wheat. And then the best way to bake a pie is put it in the oven on 425, or actually, after you do this, you either do an egg wash or a milk or cream wash over the crust. That's what will give it the golden brown. And then I like to sprinkle sugar all over it because that makes it really yummy. Put it in the oven on 425 for 15 minutes and then turn it down to 325 for 45 minutes. And that should make the crust and the pie both cooked perfectly. So I hope you have happy pie making day. Here's the bonus feature. You can do, cut out your leftover trimmings of your dough and sprinkle it with a thick layer of cinnamon and sugar and bake it at 425 for 5 minutes. And you have yummy little cookies. I actually ended up baking these cookies for about 7 minutes. And they came out perfect like that. With butter crust, another thing is if it's cold, if you refrigerate your pie, the crust is hard. If it's room temperature, it's nice and flaky and delicious because butter hardens up really easily. So room temperature is the best.